can you take this?
Seems good to me, sure. Prabhu, there is the prayers book.
Prayers?
It can be given to everyone. Just one copy. We want to read from it. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Let's begin with some prayers now. So you're being handed over a book. You can just open the book and you can go to page 22. Okay, it's visible here also. So you'll be reading something from the book. And Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. My dear Lord, please guide us all so that we can understand how you have a plan for us and that we can be a part of your plan. Hare Krishna. So, today and tomorrow, we'll be discussing about this topic of, does God have a plan for our life? And I'll be discussing based on the Bhagavad Gita and this particular book that you hold in your hand is about prayers inspired by the Bhagavad Gita, and it focuses primarily on the theme of how each verse of the Bhagavad Gita can be not just a source of wisdom, but also an inspiration for prayer. So, Kulashekar Maharaj, many of his prayers are inspired by the prayers by the verses of the Bhagavad Gita. So, for example, Krishna says, Tesham aham samuddharta mrityu samsara sagarat. That those people, I lift them out of the ocean of material existence. And Kulashekar Maharaj in Kundmala Sutra prays, Samsara sagar nimagnam ananta deenam uddharatum arhasi hare purushottamosmi. So he says, my dear Lord, this ocean of material existence is vast and unsurpassable. And you, O Lord, can lift us out of that ocean. So like that, I have taken the Gita's verses and I have used them to compose prayers. And this book has 5 parts in it. You have a beautiful picture of a Krishna deity, as you'll see. Then there is one prayer which is like a spiritual affirmation, a devotional affirmation. Then there's a Bhagavad Gita verse. Then I have done a poetic translation of the Bhagavad Gita verse to help us get more of a devotional feel of the Gita as Krishna's words. And then there is a 200 word reflection. So let's discuss based on this. You can repeat after me. Let me remember, my dear Lord, that my life story is a part of your story. Let us recite the verse, those of you who are comfortable. Tatah shvetair hayair yukte mahati syandane sthitau madhava pandavaschaiva divyau shankhau pradadmatuhu. Then Krishna and Arjuna, standing tall, on their chariot white steeds and all, blew their conches loud and bright, a sound that shook the field with might. This is the Gita's verse. Do we have a second mic, or would anyone like to read loudly? Just one paragraph. Anyway, you can read without it. Who would like to read? Please. You have a book with you? Or you can read from here.
My dear Lord, you are always with me in the chariot of this body, which has river with Arjuna on the battlefield.
Yes, one paragraph at a time. So, thank you. So now the Bhagavad Gita is a historical book. At the same time, it is not just a historical book. It is also a book that offers timeless wisdom. It is also a book that is illustrating principles that apply for all time across human history. And therefore, what the Gita is depicting as Krishna's with Arjuna. Now, our body is itself like a chariot. And in the chariot of the body is we, the soul, and along with us, the Supreme Lord. So basically, when we go through life, we just don't go through events, things happen. We experience those events. And we experience the events in life as a part of some story that our mind is telling us. That story can be based on many different things. But the same event that happens, somebody loses a job. When I started coming to America for the first time, 2014, 2015 onwards, I was doing some Western outreach. And one thing that struck me is that at times, I don't want to generalize, or absolutize rather, but I noticed that even if Americans would sometimes lose their job, I'm quite nonchalant. In fact, I haven't yet met an American who says the word, I'm jobless. They say, I'm between jobs. So, I'm between jobs. You could say it's a positive way of looking at things, but it is also a part of a view that one has of life. So, we all have a story that's going on inside us. And that story is largely shaped by our mind. Now, there are different worldviews that may be there. And based on the kind of worldview that we have, we accordingly, kind of worldview that we have, we will have a particular kind of story. So there can be many different kinds of stories, but I'll focus on mainly two kinds of stories. One is the materialistic story. See, in the materialistic story, all that is there is the world, and we are there in the world. And our entire life is defined by two things. What is done to us and what is done by us. What is done to us. So now, who did something to us? Some person might have done something to us, nature might have done something to us, fate might have done something to us. What is done to us and what is done by us. And sometimes we may not be powerful enough. And if we are not powerful enough, some people might hurt us, and they may hurt us terribly. And we start feeling life is so unfair. And sometimes what is done by us, we may sometimes feel that, oh, I made a mess of things. Maybe we feel that I am not talented enough. I am not smart enough. Maybe I was not sharp enough at that time. So when our life story is reduced to these two things, what is done by us, if that is inadequate, then we tend to become insecure. We start feeling, maybe I am not good enough. And if what is done by us, if what is done to us is bad, we start becoming resentful. So, most people's life story is characterized by these two emotions, that insecurity, unworthiness, inferiority. Oh, I am not good enough. And on the other side, what I am getting is not good enough. People are not treating me right. I am not getting what I deserve. And when our life story is just this much, what is done to me and what is done by me. In general, within such a story, the human mind looks for two things. Because what happens basically, we'll be talking about two trajectories that we might go. See, the basic fact of life is that there is one truth about life which no one can deny. By Krishna's mercy, I've been traveling for the last 10 years across the world. I've spoken to people from different religious backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds, different civilizational values, whatever. There is one truth about life which can be conveyed in 3 words that everyone from every background will agree with. And what that truth in 3 words is that life is tough. Life is tough. And what makes life especially tough is that life seems to be unfairly tough. That not only I'm having problems, I feel I'm having more problems than others. So I feel that that person is getting a better deal than me. When we say life is tough, see, sometimes one of the biggest stumbling blocks for a Westerner in appreciating Eastern philosophy, not just Indian philosophy, but any Eastern philosophy is, Eastern philosophy begins with the idea that there is distress in the world. The Gita says dukkha alayam. In Buddhism, there is the idea of dukkha is the first noble truth. So now, dukkha, or this toughness of life, what does it mean? When we say this world is a place of distress, a place of misery, that seems very pessimistic for people. And especially if we live in a relatively comfortable or prosperous part of the world, life's not that bad. Now, of course, now there's a lot of political, economic turbulence, so that is something which is there. But when we say life is tough, that can be over a spectrum. Spectrum means that on one side, sometimes life can just give us devastation. Devastation means bad things happen to us. So, the toughness of life happens when, say, we expect something in life, and the expectation is one way, and the reality turns out to be completely the opposite. Now, this is devastation. While I've been traveling here, for the last 2 months I've been in America, I met one boy in one city. He said that he was practicing bhakti and was introduced in Bangladesh to bhakti, and he came to America for studies. And then he was doing environmental studies, and the government completely slashed the budget for environmental research. And he had got a fully accredited program with full scholarship. Suddenly his professor told me that we have to let you go. It's nothing to do now. You come with a certain expectation. He has spent his time, he has spent his money, and he's flying to America, and now everything is gone. What is he going to do? Sometimes life can be devastating. And this is terrible. However, all the distress of life is not just devastation. Sometimes life can be filled with dissatisfaction. Now, when there's dissatisfaction, so when there's devastation, bad things happen to us. But when there's dissatisfaction, it is that the good things that happen to us are not good enough. So what happens is we have a certain set of expectations. And reality turns out to be short of the expectations. Now, objectively speaking, which is worse, dissatisfaction or devastation? Devastation. But subjectively speaking, dissatisfaction can also be unbearable. If somebody had pinned all their hopes, for example, in getting into a particular company or getting into a particular career, and they get there, and after they get there and they find out, hey, this is not all that great, then this is disappointing. Then actually it can be more disorienting. Because why? At least with the dissatisfaction, I had a goal and life went against me. But here, I achieved my goal and my goal turned out to be not good enough. And what am I to do next in my life? So of course society will tell us set another goal and chase that goal. But dissatisfaction can also be very disorienting. If somebody's life's dream is that I'm going to buy a big house on Beverly Hills, and they buy a house, and then, okay, what next? People come and appreciate the house for some time, and then after that, what next? It's okay, it's still the same, you're going to stay in the same house, you still have, basically we stay in a physical structure, we still have to do our bodily activities, we still have to go through the daily grind. So things don't change so much. So basically, life is tough. This is just a fact of life. And what makes it worse is that we often feel that if bad things happen to me, what is happening to me is far worse than what is happening to others. Or if good things are happening to me, but they are not as good enough as what is happening to someone else. Now, I get a good job, I'm happy. But if my friend gets a better job than me, then my happiness goes away. So, it is quite often that it just makes us feel that life is giving us a raw deal. So, we'll talk about this, how we see our life as a part of a bigger story or we don't see it as a part of a bigger story. And we'll compare this based on the life of the Pandavas and the Kauravas. And the overall what I'm going to discuss, this is going to be summarized in one diagram. And with this diagram we'll explore. Basically, for us, everybody will feel that life is unfair. Sooner or later, life is tough, and life is especially tough for me. So unfairness comes in life. Now when this unfairness comes, from there, we can go toward resentfulness. We can become resentful. And from resentful, we can go further down and become hateful. So this is the trajectory that the Kauravas choose. Now, on the other hand, the Pandavas, what they do is, there is another trajectory possible for us. Life is unfair, life feels unfair, but within that, we can choose to be resourceful. Now, once we are resourceful, we can go further and we can become graceful. Graceful means we can receive divine grace. We can receive mercy in our life. And this is the trajectory that the Pandavas chose. So, what is the trajectory you are choosing right now? I have to become. The previous was okay, bro. Okay, okay, now. With this mic. So, okay. Okay, so now we're discussing this life trajectory. So, at one level, this is a broad trajectory. Like some people just become filled with resentfulness and they even become hateful. But while it can be a broad life trajectory, it can also be a moment to moment choice. Now, each moment, something can happen to us that might feel unfair. That we go to work and our boss gives us a disproportionate amount of work. We come to a temple and we get more service and somebody else gets less service. Sometimes we may like that service, sometimes we don't like that service. Maybe we come back home tired and our child makes an unreasonable demand. Then, when these things happen, each of us has a choice whether we'll be resentful or we'll be resourceful. And while this choice itself can be made by anyone, a positive choice, but often it's the story that is going on inside us that shapes the kind of choice that we will be making. So basically, what, as I said, if I go back earlier, what happens over here is, the materialistic story is that actually people do bad things and sometimes I also do bad things. That I become resentful because people don't treat me rightly. And then I become insecure because I am not able to do right thing. Maybe I'm not strong enough. Maybe I'm not good enough. This is the story that we have in our life. I would like to go beyond this story. So do we have the second mic? Or someone else? You can read one more paragraph. Yeah. So, yeah.
Please, O Lord, let this beautiful beatific vision of the human divine partnership become the enduring image that resides and presides in my memory. Let these be the centerpiece of the story I tell myself internally as my life story unfolds externally with its inevitable ups and downs.
Yes. See, life will always have ups and downs. Externally, that's what's going to happen. But how do we interpret, how does our mind process those ups and downs? That is what spirituality helps us to change. Now, many self-help teachers will change. Okay, you can't change what happens to us, but you can change how you respond to what happens to you. Or you can change how you look at what happens to you. And that all is true. No doubt about it. But it is very difficult to do this only at a psychological level. Only at a psychological level means just change how you look at things. It has to go deeper to a philosophical level, where what is the worldview with which we are operating? What is the basic story that we are telling ourselves? I'll explain what I mean by this. That when we are trying to practice bhakti, when we start, say, chanting Hare Krishna, it's not just some mantra we are adding into our life. It's actually meant to change our whole worldview. The basic principle of this worldview is that we are not alone in the world. And that we are not fighting all on our own against this big bad world and somehow trying to make things right or make things good. That we are all a part of a bigger story. Each one of us, our life has a cosmic significance. So let's look at this, that as I said, if we don't have this vision, the vision that, so basically, this other vision is this, that, okay, I am in the world, and yes, there are some things which are done to me, and there are some things which are done by me. However, above this is God, is Krishna. And whatever is actually done by me is under Krishna's plan. That does not mean exactly whatever I do is Krishna's plan. But similarly, whatever is done to me, that is also within Krishna's plan. So it is not just a random set of events that are happening to me and I'm just struggling to deal with them. Our life is a part of a bigger story. So let's look at this further. Now when you talk about the unfairness of life, as I said, life is tough for everyone. And one aspect of the toughness of life is that everyone feels that they are shortchanged by life, that life gave them a raw deal. So let's look at the Kauravas and let's look at the Pandavas. And let's see what choices they made in their life as they moved forward. So now, Duryodhan was the chief among the Kauravas. And where was Duryodhan born? In Hastinapur, yes. And where were the Pandavas born? In the forest, more in the Himalayas basically. Now, who was the king at that time? Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra was not meant to be the king because he was unfortunately blind. Now, we could say that Dhritarashtra could have felt life is unfair to me. And yes, that's true. Life is unfair. But if you see what happened for him eventually, yes, he got a brother who was very respectful to him. He got a wife who was very faithful to him. And when Pandu became the king, there is no reference in the Mahabharata either that Pandu ever disrespected Dhritarashtra, nor is there any reference much that Dhritarashtra ever envied Pandu. It is more or less they had a cordial relationship. But Pandu retired early and then Dhritarashtra became the caretaker king. And then Duryodhan was born. And then naturally every parent will have the desire that their child get the best. So Dhritarashtra would obviously have had the desire that I would be the king, and he thought Duryodhan should be the king. That's understandable at that time. Initially it was not clear whether Pandu would have children or not at all. If Pandu had children, would those children would come back? Would those children lay claim to the kingdom? Nothing was known. So at that time, basically Duryodhan grew up not just as a prince, but as they say, the heir. The heir is not H-E-A-I-R heir, it is heir. Like, it's not the Rajkumar, but Yuvraj, the person who's going to be the next king. So generally in royal families or in any well-to-do family, any patriarchal families, there's a lot of concern about succession. Who will carry on what we have? So the idea of upward mobility that is there now, where people choose a different career which they hope will be more prosperous or more fulfilling, that was practically non-existent whether in India or in the West. Whatever family you were born in, more or less your life trajectory and career trajectory was determined by that. So in a royal family, there was always a lot of concern that we should have children, and at least we should have a child, in those times it was a male child, who would become the successor. But then, after they had the heir, there was always the fear. What if something happens to the heir? Then, therefore, after they had an heir, then they would want to have a spare. So, the heir and the spare. Now, the spare would always be in a very peculiar position. Generally, no sibling would want anything bad to happen to their sibling. But unless something bad happens to the heir, the spare is never going to become the king. Mm-hmm. So, in UK, there is still some level of nominal monarchy is there. So, there was one prince who was the spare. And he's written a whole book about how his life was so miserable because he was the spare. And he was not the heir. Now, there's a lot of unearned privilege because he was born in the royal family. And actually he got most of the royal privilege without any of the royal responsibility or the royal expectations, which come when you are the heir. But anyway, so being the spare is not a very pleasant situation. Now Duryodhan thought that he was the heir. And he was treated by everyone also like he was the heir. And then the Pandavas came back. When the Pandavas came back to the kingdom, naturally in any family, if a new child comes, everybody's attention goes to the new child. Oh, who is this new kid who has come? How is that kid? So the Pandavas, Yudhishthira along with the Pandavas, what happened was, first they were new. And not only they were new, there was natural curiosity, but along with new, the Pandavas were actually very polite. By polite and respectful, because Duryodhan grew up in royal kingdom, everybody respected him as the prince and the heir, as they say, the heir apparent, and he had servants waiting for him all the time. The Pandavas, on the other hand, grew in the forest. There were no servants waiting for them. They had to do their own things. And on top of that, they were surrounded by sages. Their parents taught them to respect the sages. So what happened? The Pandavas were very polite and well-behaved. Duryodhan, on the other hand, was a bit entitled. He was a bit rude. He was a bit dismissive. So naturally, whenever anybody sees a child, the normal human tendency is they want to be affectionate to the child. And if the child is well behaved, then even the hardest person becomes very soft and sweet toward the child. Generally, it takes a lot to dislike a child. Unless the consistent misbehavior is there. It is not so, we may temporarily be unhappy, but so what happened was Yudhishthira became very attractive. And Yudhishthira, the third thing was, Yudhishthira was slightly older. So things became confusing. And Duryodhan thought, I am the heir, and suddenly started thinking, maybe I am the spare now. So when this happened, naturally, it's completely understandable that he would feel insecure. He would feel life is unfair. Why? What did I do? I was born in a royal family. Now he could say that, why was my father blind? If my father had not been blind, then I would have had a claim to the kingdom. Okay. And then suddenly he grew up entitled, and now this upstart has come, and his upstart is claiming his position. So it's natural that anyone in that situation, if you look at this trajectory, he would feel that it's unfair. Why can't I be the straight claimant for the kingdom? He would feel resentful. So resentfulness is something which everyone will feel sooner or later in life. That's just the nature of life. Now the question is, often we may have emotions that we are not proud of. And that's bad, but our character is not defined so much by the emotions that we have as by the actions that we do under the influence of those emotions. See, everybody has certain lines that they will not cross. We all may get angry. See, now when we get angry, some of us may yell. Some people may just become silent and not speak at all. Some people may not just yell, but they will yell and they will threaten. Some people will yell and use obscene words. So when anger comes, for example, anger is the emotion. Now anger is the emotion that everyone will experience. Because sooner or later, how we want things to be, everyone will find that things are not going that way. At that time, anger will naturally come. But that anger can have different boundaries. So for some people, the line will be, okay, I'm not going to use foul words. For some people, will not just use foul words, they may actually raise their fists. And some people may not just raise a fist, they might find a knife too. Some people might just take a gun. Some people, say the President of America or the President of India, of Russia, they can just nuke a whole country. So for all of us, there are certain lines that we will not cross. So our character is often defined by not just what we pursue, what we desire. Like we say that, say a devotee will desire Krishna. A pure-hearted person will desire good things. So our character is actually defined by both these things. It's what we seek, but it's also determined by what we will not do for what we seek. What we seek and what we will not do for what we seek. Everybody may want to become wealthy, but for wealth, I'm not going to cheat someone. I'm not going to ruin someone's reputation. I'm not going to kill someone. Everybody has certain boundaries. So what will we not do? That to a large extent this comes from culture, this comes from nature, but it's all a matter ultimately of choice. Say if we have now as parents, we all want our children to do well. We want our child to come first in class. And say our child does well, but never comes first in class. One day our child comes home and says, Mommy, Daddy, I've come first in class. Oh, wonderful, congratulations. How did you do that? He says, you wanted me to come first in class? That's why I found a way. Oh, what was the way? I learned computer hacking. I hacked the computer of my professor, of my teacher. I got the full question paper beforehand. I prepared the answers and I came first. Oh, don't get any ideas. So now, not only will you say, oh, that's not how I want you to come first. What kind of person do you think you are? And what kind of person do you think I am that I'll be pleased by this? Isn't it? So the thing is that what are the boundaries that we have? So Duryodhana's feeling resentful is understandable. But from that feeling of resentfulness, see basically when we think that everything in my life depends on me alone, that I have to do whatever it takes to succeed, then why bother about any boundaries? If I have the power to get away with something, why not get away with it? So within a non-spiritual, non-devotional, non-theistic worldview, morality becomes simply lack of opportunity. Either I don't have the opportunity, I don't have the power, otherwise why live within certain lines? So why are we talking about this? That Duryodhana, his feeling of resentfulness was natural. Now resentfulness for all of us is understandable at times. It's understandable, though still of course it's and undesirable. But a few people going down from there to being hateful. Now, what happened to Duryodhana? He became hateful of the Pandavas. Now, when we are resentful, it is general about the world. Oh, why is life treating me like this? Why are people treating me like that? Why is this happening to me? But when it becomes hateful, it becomes concentrated on one particular person. And when it becomes concentrated on one particular person, then we start thinking, whatever it takes, I'm going to destroy this person. So, if you can, some people say that actually Duryodhana was not a bad person. Shakuni made him bad actually. But it is that the whole poisoning of Bhima was planned by Duryodhana without much help of Shakuni. It was not that Duryodhana was a good person and Shakuni made him bad. Duryodhana was a bad person and Shakuni made him worse. He already was a person who was barely just a teenager, and that time he plotted to poison his cousin, poison Bhima. And then after that it just went worse and worse. That didn't work. But then, do you think Duryodhana had any regrets that his plan didn't work? Yeah, he had regrets. Not that I did something wrong, that what I didn't work. That was the regret he had. Isn't it? So then he tried something worse. Kill all the Pandavas. Not just the Pandavas, even their mother. So it just became worse and worse and worse. He became hateful. So see, when we are resentful, often what we seek is relief. I will talk a little bit about this more in tomorrow's session also. And often with relief, we seek pleasure. And that is where that pleasure can become addictive. Addiction results because, for many reasons, but at one level, people are resentful, and resentfulness is a very unpleasant state to be in. One has to get out of that. And to get out of that, we need some quick pleasure. And quick pleasure is a quick dopamine hit. We want that, and that quick pleasure soon becomes addictive. So we will trace this trajectory. But when we become hateful, seeking pleasure is understandable. Now, how we are seeking pleasure is important. Quite often, when we are resentful, there's just so much pain inside that whatever pleasure I can get as quickly as possible, I want it right now, just to get away from this. But when we become hateful, we are not seeking pleasure. We are not seeking relief. We are actually seeking a villain. That we want a villain on whom we can pin all the blame for our life. Everything is wrong in my life because of this person. And then one's life's mission becomes to destroy that person. So, when our worldview, Prithak-drusha, our worldview is very fragmented. The whole world is me against the world. What is done by me, what is done to me. Then it's very easy to go down to be resentful, and from resentful to become hateful. So, when we become hateful, we pin all the blame for our life's problems on a particular villain. So it is in finding a villain, in fixating on a villain, that we end up ourselves becoming like a villain. So Duryodhan thought that in the story of his life, the Pandavas were the villains. He thought that they are spoiling my plan for my life. I was supposed to become the king. I was supposed to inherit the kingdom. Where did these people come from? I have to get them out of my life. And thus, he started doing worse and worse things. So this is the dark trajectory. Now, how does one go down? Each individual may go down for different reasons on that trajectory. But broadly, it is we are resentful, the person is resentful, and from there they become hateful. Now, unfortunately, in America, we have these tragic school shootings. They're not just tragic, they're horrific. So there could be many specific reasons for why somebody does something insane like that. But one common denominator which has been observed is that some people say just guns, take away guns from people. That's part of it. But in Europe, we have people using knives to stab people, going on stabbing sprees. So the thing is that everybody will feel sooner or later that their life is bad, that their resentment. Often people who come from broken families, they feel others' lives are happier than mine. Why should their life be happier than mine? And then if somebody's life is happier than mine, I'll just get at least one moment of glory, a few moments of fame. Even if it is infamy, still it is fame. I'll get some fame and then they do terrible things. But this way, so overall, this is not a sociological analysis, this is more of a psychological outline of how things can happen. So, fortunately, while life will be unfair to everyone, it doesn't we don't have to go down this trajectory. That from unfairness to resentfulness to hatefulness. We don't have to go down this trajectory. There is another trajectory available, and that happens when we get a spiritual vision of life. Would anyone like to read the next paragraph? Would somebody else like to read?
The world outside and the mind inside tell me many stories. Stories in which sometimes I am a winner and sometimes I am a loser. These stories are always centered on either what is done to me or what is done by me. But both what is done to me and what is done by me are meant to be a part of your magnificent and benevolent plan for my ultimate welfare and indeed for everyone's ultimate welfare.
Yes. Thank you. What is done by me and what is done to me. They're realities, but they're not the only realities. There is a bigger reality. So if we look at the lives of the Pandavas, now if we look at their lives, was life unfair for them? What do you think? Yes? In what way? Yes? In what way? Okay, that was when they became older. But much earlier? Yes, their father died. They could have also, like the Duryodhan, he could have said, why is my father blind? The Pandavas could have said that, why did our father ever retire from the kingdom? He could have just stayed in the forest. They could have said that. We don't know whether they said that. Unlikely they said that. But their father was in the forest, and then their father died. It was unfortunate. Now in those days, for somebody to not have a father, especially if you are in a warrior family, and a warrior family means you will always have enemies. It was a very vulnerable situation. Sages told them that you should go back to the kingdom. They told Kunti, your children are still small, you should go back to the kingdom for their safety. Now Kunti's life is a life of, her story is of immense character. It's so she came back to the kingdom. Now, she had happy memories of being in the palace with her husband. But now without her husband, what was going to happen? And the sages came and the sages told what had happened. And Bhishma was very concerned. Bhishma welcomed the princess back. And rather, welcomed the princess not back. But then, for the Pandavas, they came to the kingdom for safety. The sages had told them in the forest there are dangerous animals. But what the sages had not thought that in the palace there are even more dangerous animals. There are two-legged animals who try to kill them. So the Pandavas could say, what did we do to have our father die? What did we do to deserve a cousin like this who's out to kill us? What did we do to deserve an uncle like this who's passive while his sons are doing something like this? So life was unfair for them also. So life in the big picture is unfair for everyone. So I may have told this story before, last year or earlier. Many of you know that I have polio. So when I was 1, my mother, we were staying in a small town in Maharashtra. My mother took me to a physician, to a clinic to get a polio vaccine. And it was a small town, so the power supply was unpredictable. The previous night, the clinic's power supply had gone off. And that's why the fridge's power supply had not been there. The fridge temperature increased, and the vaccine in the fridge also had the germs increased within it because of the increased temperature. Neither the attendant nor the physician noticed that. When they gave me the vaccine, because of the excessive germs in it, instead of preventing polio, that vaccine ended up causing polio. So when I was about 1, this happened. I don't remember any of it. I was just learning to walk, and I fell down and I could not walk afterward normally. But my first memory of this was when I was about 2.5 or 3, and a distant relative had come to our home, and she was consoling my mother, saying, "Oh, it's so sad, your son got polio." And I remember my mother's voice, very calm, clear, confident. She said, whatever he lacks physically, God will provide him intellectually. Now, I don't know why my mother said that. And she passed away soon after that so I never got to ask her that. But somehow she said that, and it stayed with me. And because it stayed with me and I grew up, it was that, actually what it stayed with me was also what's important. Not the God part didn't stay with me, the intellectually part stayed with me first. The God part came later, that was more by Prabhupada's mercy. But Anyway, so when I grew up, I couldn't play outdoor games like other kids could play. But when I started reading, I noticed that I could read quite quickly, understand rapidly, remember well, articulate nicely. So some understanding settled at the back of my mind. I articulated it many years later. But I could say one part of me that life, I didn't do anything to deserve this physical disability. So life was unfair to me. But then I could say that I didn't do anything to deserve this intellectual ability also. So life is unfair, but in the big picture, life is fairly unfair. Fairly unfair means, it means two things. It works at an individual level, that for us in our lives, sometimes we get things worse than what we deserve, and sometimes we get things better than what we deserve. And it also works at a collective level. Collective level means what? Life is unfair, and life is unfair to everyone sooner or later. In that sense, life is fair. Life is fairly unfair to everyone. So life was unfair to the Kauravas, and life was unfair to the Pandavas. So now this is the essential human choice. That the essential means this is the essence of every choice that we make in our life. We can look at how life has been unfair to us, and we can become resentful. Or we can look at how life is fair to us, and we can try to be resourceful. So when we try to be resourceful, it got cut off. Is there any need to do that? Okay, I mean, there's no need to flip. Or is it that the audience online will only see, they won't see me at all? Oh, they don't see both side by side. Okay, fine. That is a different story than my mind was telling me about what is going on. Okay. So what I was saying is that for each one of us, we can choose what to focus on in life. The Pandavas, what did they do? Now, life gave them a raw deal also. But they did not start going down the dark track. Did they feel resentful? Maybe they did. We don't know. After all, we can look at them as pure devotees and they say they experience none of the human emotions that we experience. Or we can say they were pure devotees, but they're still in the material world. And they may experience some of the emotions like we might have experienced. But they never succumb to those emotions. What we know from the historical record is that, wow, that is even more interesting. It's like a beheaded speaker. So the Pandavas, what we know from the Mahabharata is that they chose to be resourceful. Now, how did they choose to be resourceful? That whatever opportunities they got. Now, resourceful does not mean, it can mean two different things. And let us see what it means. One, it can mean full with resources. That when they have lots of resources. But the other can means that fully use whatever resources we have. We use them in both senses. So resourceful we can use in both senses. Sometimes we may need that, if say some gadget is damaged and you need a screw to open it, and somebody has a whole array of 30 different kind of screws. You're a resourceful person. So that's resourceful. Now somebody doesn't have, we don't have the screw, and they to take out a hairpin or something and they use that as a screw. And they make it work somehow. That's also resourceful. So see, the Kshatriyas that is one of the characters is Daksham. And Prabhupada can sometimes translate as expertise, sometimes he translates as resourcefulness also. And it's not just for Kshatriyas, it's for everyone. See, we all have a certain set of resources and we need to use fully the resources that we have. So what did the Pandavas do? The Pandavas took whatever opportunities they had. They didn't have royal comfort, but they had the facility for a good teacher. And they learned everything very well. They learned the warrior skills very well. Then, when they were attempted to be killed, they survived somehow. Not somehow. The Pandavas worked very hard. They helped actually dig a tunnel by which they could escape. And they escaped, they survived. And then after that, they won the hand of Draupadi. And then that's how they became powerful. And even after that, life kept giving them a raw deal. They came back and they gave them the half of the kingdom that was a wasteland. And they converted it by hard work into a flourishing kingdom. So they worked hard, they were resourceful. Of course, they were not just resourceful, they were also graceful. We'll talk about that, about Krishna's mercy. But the point over here is that this going down that path of resentment is not something which we have to do. Yes, whatever is happening in our life, it can be bad. And nobody has to say that this is not bad. Yes, bad things do happen in the world. But our life story is not just a small story. That I am here and this person did this to me or I did this. It is that whatever is happening, it is all a part of a bigger plan. Now, what do I mean by it is a part of a bigger plan? So was it Krishna's plan that Draupadi be disrobed and be dishonored like that? Now, what is Krishna's plan and how Krishna's plan works, that I'll discuss more elaborately in tomorrow's session. But the key point I would like to make over here is that we have this choice. And this choice, while the choice that we make, it arises from, at one level, will. Oh, I'm going to do this. Now, sometimes some people, no matter how many difficulties come, hum honge kamyab. With will we can work. And that's good to have willpower. It's better than to have nothing. But it's also with wisdom. Now what is the wisdom over here? That is the wisdom that philosophy provides. Now psychology, somebody can have a very positive attitude. And that can give them a lot of willpower. That is, okay, some people they all look at positive in life. Look at the positive, don't look at the negative. And that's true, that's good. And by that we can create, by looking at the positive, we can try to have goodwill, a good, strong willpower, and that's good. But we need wisdom along with it. Now, what does philosophy mean? Philosophy can have many different meanings. Now, normally, if we just meet people, maybe in an office get together, or just relatives or acquaintances meeting after a long time, the first thing we ask them, so what is the philosophy? What is your life philosophy? Is that a question we ask people normally? Generally we won't. People think, what kind of person are you? See, most people turn toward philosophy for one purpose. It is to make sense of things. It is to make sense of things. Okay. To make sense of my handwriting here. To make sense of things when things don't make sense. So when we have to make sense of things when things don't make sense, that is the time when we turn toward philosophy. Normally, people don't turn toward philosophy. Yeah, okay, or this person is a foolish person, or this person is an impulsive person, oh, I am like this, I am like that. We try to come up with some explanations. But sometimes those explanations just don't make sense. And that's where we turn towards philosophy. So bhakti is not just about feeling good in the presence of God. Yes, it's a very important part of it. Bhakti is not just about doing some seva. Bhakti is about understanding that my life is a part of Krishna's plan. That my story is a part of Krishna's story. And when we have that understanding, that gives us such a affirmative way of looking at life. Let's look at the last paragraph here. There are two paragraphs, but who would like to read it? You have the mic.
Let me remembrance of your merciful integration of my life story into your plan be the guiding and guarding light for all decisions. Let it be the guiding factor that pushes me forward even through difficult situations. Let it also be the guarding factor that keeps me away from knee-jerk reactions that take me away from you.
Yes, thank you. A few difficult words were there. Thank you for going through that. So basically, I'll make one theme. I'll make one point here, which I'll continue tomorrow. I earlier talked about our emotions. We all understand that we all can feel resentful. We all can sometimes even go towards feeling hateful if somebody has really hurt us terribly. But what happens is, our emotions are reversible. That means the emotions come and they go. Not only that, many times the situations that lead to those emotions themselves are reversible. Sometimes we may be in a situation where people are treating us very badly, one person is treating us very badly, but sometimes that person changes, maybe the situation changes. Sometimes the situations are reversible and sometimes the emotions are reversible, which arise from those situations. But unfortunately, sometimes under the spell of the situations and the emotions, we take decisions. And those decisions can be irreversible. So, this is what we do not want to do. And under the influence of reversible situations and reversible emotions, let us not take decisions that are irreversible. So what can be? So for example, now Duryodhan trying to kill Bhima, Duryodhan trying to burn all the Pandavas alive, Duryodhan trying to dishonor Draupadi. These are decisions which are very, very difficult to reverse. We may not become hateful like that, and that is true. Most of us will not become hateful to that degree. But we all take certain decisions under the spell of emotions. So everybody faces difficulties in life. And they're difficult. For example, when there are disasters in somebody's life, then disasters can lead to total discouragement, or even not just discouragement, it can lead to demoralization. A person feels completely demotivated, demoralized. Now when they're feeling this demoralization, now suppose they go on some path of self-destruction. Self-destruction could be they get into drugs, something which is like a slow poison, or sometimes some people may choose to end their life also. Now these can be irreversible decisions. So life is tough, but if we have a bigger picture to our life that helps us to not take the situations and the emotions that we are experiencing too seriously. Yes, it's a bad situation. The emotion I'm feeling is also true, it's terrible, but I don't have to act on it. I don't have to overreact to it. So tomorrow we'll discuss about, what was Duryodhan's thinking when he became so hateful. We already discussed to some extent. And we'll also discuss how the Pandavas were not just resourceful, but also graceful. And what that means for us. For us as devotees, this understanding that my life story, if this is my life, this is Krishna's plan, and my plan or my life story is within Krishna's plan. How exactly it is within Krishna's plan, how I'll work within that plan, all that will be something which is to be understood through purification, through introspection, through association, and we'll discuss that in tomorrow's session. I'll summarize what I discussed today. But before that, let's look at the last line. Who would like to read the last line here? Yes, please.
My dear Lord, bless me so that my life journey can always remain a harmonious part of your unfolding ultimate story.
Yes, let it be at my life story. Let the choices that I make, let me ensure that I'm a part of your story. Always. So, I talked about 3 main points today. Our theme was, does God have a plan for us? Have a plan for me? Now, I am not talking here from some mysterious perspective that there is some secret talent we have, and that talent, once discovered, that's the plan for our life. I was talking more in a more broad terms that for all of us, when we go through life, we can have a small vision of our life that I am alone in this world, and my whole life is about what people do to me and what I do. So if what people are doing bad enough to me, I feel bad about it. I feel resentful. If people of the world are, I become insecure if I feel what I am doing is not good enough. But what we are trying to understand is that while there is a reality to this, there is a bigger reality. Also, there is Krishna above us, and what is done to us and what is done by us. Both of these are parts of Krishna's plan. That there is Krishna's plan in whatever is happening in our lives. So, how do we understand this part? We discuss this trajectory that everybody feels that life is unfair. And from there we can go down towards being resentful, and from there hateful. So we discussed how the Duryodhan went down this trajectory. The Kauravas in general, but Duryodhan in particular. Duryodhan felt that I was the heir, and suddenly, why did I become the spare? So his feeling of resentment is understandable, but hateful is where is a line we cross, line we shouldn't cross, but we end up crossing that line at times. Everybody can feel terrible things, but we don't act on those terrible things. And the other option is, we can, instead of being resentful, we can be resourceful. We use what opportunities we have, and we can become graceful. So what graceful means I didn't discuss. Resourceful means not just we are full with many resources, but we fully use whatever resources we have. And the last part I discussed was how when we have this understanding that yes, there is a bigger plan to my life, and then each one of us, when we face life's challenges, life is unfair, but in the big picture, life is fairly unfair. So I discussed how my mother guided me towards focusing on the fair part of life, not the unfair part of life. That this is, instead of being resentful, we can be resourceful. Whatever is good for me, let me focus on that. And we discussed that to make this choice of being resourceful, this good choice, we can have willpower, and that comes through psychology, motivational talks and stuff like that. Somebody can have a lot of will, but we also need wisdom. And wisdom comes from philosophy. So that philosophy, what it is and what philosophy are we meant to use in our life, that philosophy centers on understanding that my life story is a part of a bigger story. So for us, situations can be bad in life, but bad situations are reversible. So when they are reversible, from there emotions that rise are also reversible. But unfortunately, from there some people may take decisions that may well be irreversible. So we don't want to go down this particular trajectory. So how to not go down this trajectory, how to go upwards. I'll talk more about this in tomorrow's session. Are there any quick questions or comments? Okay, before we finish, let us offer this spiritual affirmation as a prayer once. Okay, here. Let us pray to Krishna. My dear Lord, please help me Whenever I feel that life is unfair to me, let me not become resentful or ever hateful. Help me to be resourceful, O Lord, and help me to become graceful. You can repeat after me. My dear Lord, let me remember that my life story is a part of your story. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. This one? Oh, okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So there is a karma, based on my karma, all things will happen to me, right? It's not like, so how can we explain that unfair and karma together, like both two words here?
Yeah, so the point is, from this life's perspective, things do feel unfair. So we all everything that happens, we look at it from a particular framework. So if, say, you are polite to me and I am rude to you, then you could very well say that, oh, it's my karma. But you can also say that I am a rude person. So now which is the reality? Is it that I am a rude person, or it's your karma that I am there in your life and I am being rude to you? Both could be true. In general, the principle is that when we are looking for explanations, we are looking for understanding. What is happening in my life? In looking for understanding, it is best to start with visible causes first. We try to understand what is the cause of something that is happening. So look for the visible causes first, then look for the invisible causes. And as we look for the invisible causes, then a karma is one such invisible cause. So if an action can be understood and explained and corrected at the level of the visible cause, it should be done at that level. So for example, say I got polio. I could say that it was karma. And it is true to that. You know, I have a maternal uncle here in America. He settled in Detroit. So when he heard that I had got this polio, his first reaction was that, he told my father, sue the doctor. So my father is among the most peaceful persons that I have known. My father's favorite verse in the Bhagavad Gita is Sthita Pragya. So he said the Indian legal system is such that, probably before the case comes for hearing, we will be old and dead. Anyway, this polio has happened, what can we do about it? So he accepted it. Now, I have a friend, a god brother. He told me this story about 4 or 5 years ago that, he was in America, in Florida, and his daughter, his wife, when she was pregnant, she was in the hospital, and the doctors made some mess. And because of that, his daughter was born with cerebral palsy and several other huge problems. So then he wrote to his spiritual master, my spiritual master, Radhanath Maharaj, and he asked Maharaj that, now should I accept this as my karma, or should I sue the doctor? So Maharaj said that, whatever has happened, you have to accept the responsibility for taking care of your daughter now. And if there can be any help for you in discharging this responsibility, which is your dharma, then you should seek that help. So the point is that the focus is on doing our dharma. So then he sued the hospital, and because it was a clear case of not medical malpractice but medical negligence, the hospital settled out of court, and he's got a fairly good financial arrangement for his daughter for life. That doesn't change the fact that she is terribly afflicted, but still he has some support to take care. So now, what does this mean if you take these two examples? The focus is always on doing our dharma. So my father thought that if he has to go and do hundreds of rounds of court, he will not be there to take care of me, whatever care he can offer to me. So he felt that his dharma as a father could be best served by not doing the court, by suing a court. But here, in America, the legal system is different. In the entire world, to whatever extent I have traveled, America is the only place where I have seen advertisements by lawyers. It's in law firm. I was in LA and there was an ad. The ad itself said, "Who hurt you?" So who hurt you? So the idea is America is a litigious country. And so here, doing the dharma of taking care of one's daughter means, okay, sue the hospital, get some support from there. So the focus for us, see, just because something has happened to someone and they feel it's unfair, we can't just sweep away that feeling of unfairness by saying it's all your karma. From this life's perspective, from this world's perspective, there are things that are unfair. And it is the responsibility of whoever is in power, in whatever role, to correct that unfairness. Say, if somebody is speeding on the road, and they go way above the speed limit, and the cops see that, cops don't do anything about it. And then that person goes and hits someone and kills someone. And can the cops say it was your own karma that you got killed? No. It is your dharma to stop a person who is speeding. And if you don't stop the person who is speeding, then you will get negative karma. So always, when we are dealing with things, that our focus should be on what is whose dharma and is that dharma being done or not. Now, of course, at an individual level, a person may make sense of the suffering that they face by figuring past karma into the picture. So I'll make it, it's a very important principle. There are two distinct points over here. The principle of karma is to gain individual peace with whatever situation comes in life. The principle of karma is not to be used to decide social policy or to shape our interpersonal interactions. When Sita is abducted, Ram doesn't think, it must have been a karma because of she was abducted. Isn't it? When Draupadi is dishonored, nobody says that it was your own karma that you got dishonored. No. It is now for the individual. So there are 2 points about karma. See, there is in the Bhagavad Gita there is this important principle which is called Jnanam Geyam Jnanagamyam. There is knowledge, there is the object of knowledge, the objective or purpose of knowledge. So what is the purpose of knowledge of karma also? The knowledge of karma is ultimately meant to inspire dharma. It is not meant to perpetuate adharma. It is meant to inspire dharma. That whatever is happening, that I should do my part diligently. That it's meant to inspire us to do dharma. It is not to license or worse, you could say justify. It is not meant to justify adharma. Justify adharma is, whatever happened, that's your own karma, so suffer it. So is ultimately life unfair? No, it's not. That's true. Whatever happens to us, it's our own karma. But in the immediate context, can it be unfair? Of course it can be unfair. And if it's unfair, should we try to correct it? Of course we should try to correct it. Say if a child is being bullied in school, should we tell that child, it's your own karma that you're being bullied? No. It is the parent's responsibility, the teacher's responsibility, the school administration's responsibility to prevent that from happening. But in spite of all such things, sometimes life will bruise all of us. So at that time, after the individual efforts, after the efforts have been made to try to create as fair a situation as possible, despite that there is some unfairness in life, we come to accept that, we come to peace with that by considering karma. Does that answer the question? Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Prabhu. Okay.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. So if Krishna's plan, I mean our plan is within Krishna's plan, what should be our prayer and what should be our action?
So, well, do you want me to start tomorrow's class now? It's going to take some time. I'll explain this tomorrow. But I wanted to say, Krishna, I'll make one point here. See, Krishna's plan is not necessarily like one thin line. Each of the Pandavas is an individual. And Yudhishthira does not have to become like Bhima. Bhima doesn't have to become like Yudhishthira to be a part of Krishna's plan. So Krishna's plan is not so much one line as a broad direction. As a broad direction, Krishna wants us to use the gifts that he has given. Krishna wants us to develop our consciousness. Krishna wants us to develop more love for him and love for others in relationship with him. So that is the broad direction of consciousness. It is not that Krishna has one particular plan, and if you don't live by that plan, one particular line, if you don't live by that line, then you are lost. It's not like that. And so what is our prayer when we chant the Hare Krishna mantra? What are we saying? Krishna, please engage me in your service. What does that mean? That means, Krishna, you have a plan for me. Help me to be a part of your plan. So, our Hare Krishna mantra and the prayer for service is actually a prayer to be in harmony with Krishna's plan. Okay? Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhu, I think you answered, or maybe we'll try to answer tomorrow. You're saying that we should see ourselves as part of a bigger picture. It's good. Your statement makes sense, but what are the concrete steps that we can take really internally?
Okay, the concrete step is, what I talked about, one step is, don't take irreversible decisions based on reversible emotions or reversible situations. What do I mean irreversible decisions? Irreversible decisions are like what? Crossing certain lines. Like somebody decides to end their life. That's a line you should not cross. You cannot cross that line back again. So, my present situation is so terrible, I can't bear it. I just have to do something terrible to deal with it. No. So okay, right now whatever is going on in my life is difficult and it's tough to deal with it. But it's not the complete picture. Like in a movie, sometimes the hero might also get beaten. But that does not mean that's all that the movie is going to be about. So I was going to talk about this tomorrow, but let me give this as a, what do you call that as? Preview. No, that's another word. Precursor, no, not trailer. Cliffhanger. Cliffhanger, okay? See, our finite vision is not the final vision. Our finite vision is of a situation is not the final vision of the situation. So in my finite vision, it feels this is terribly unfair. Yes, it is. We can say the final vision is not unfair, but it feels unfair to me. So we don't reject our finite vision, but we don't make our finite vision the only vision. So there is more going on in this life. There's more going on in the world. And how I can make sense of what is happening, that we'll discuss tomorrow. So at least what today's session was, don't go on the downward trajectory. That resentfulness is understandable, but resentfulness will come and go. Because life is sometimes bad, but life is sometimes good also. So let that, from that resentfulness, let us not go down towards becoming a hateful ever. So we avoid that downward trajectory. That was the focus of today's class. The upward trajectory, how we take, that will be the focus of tomorrow's session. Okay. So, Mata, yes. Yeah, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Prabhu, you just mentioned when we are taking some decisions, or we have to act on on whatever the situation has arisen. If we don't act, then the negative karma might have impact on it. So yesterday my daughter, she was telling me, one of her close friend, she eats non-veg, and my daughter, she said, if you eat non-veg, then I'm not going to talk to you, because if you talk to me, the breath you take, that I am taking that breath, and indirectly I'm having that non-veg, and Krishna will not accept me what it is.
I appreciate the spirit, but I don't appreciate beyond the spirit over there. What happens? See, the thing is that we all have to consider our dharma based also on our kshetra. What is our sphere of influence at a particular time? So as a parent, you can tell your child, you should not eat this food. As a parent also, you may not be able to control what your child eats when they grow up, they become young adults or adults. But when they're children, we have a certain kshetra. So our dharma is what we do. Say if I am here, our dharma, it depends on our kshetra. So our responsibility is within our kshetra. So it is not our dharma to try to control every single person's behavior. That is not our dharma. So now we can tell people, but we have to see what is the influence of telling people. In general, when we deal with people, as I said, I appreciate the spirit, but the thing is that when we are dealing with people, we need to be more Krishna conscious than karma conscious. So, if we come off as very judgmental, we come off as very holier than thou, then people will get turned away from us. And when they get turned away from us, we may say, this is not acceptable to Krishna, but in that sense, Krishna will not become acceptable to them. Isn't it? So, there is a way to communicate, and certainly it can be communicated. So when we are living according to certain principles, we can communicate those principles either in a prescriptive way, or we can communicate in a descriptive way. So prescriptive is, you should not do this. Descriptive is, this is what I do and this is why I do it. So if the friend offers meat, we can say no. We can say no to meat. We can say it politely but firmly, and we can give our reasons. Prabhupada also says that he talks in a conversation with the Bhaktivedanta Institute scientists. When they start quoting Shastra, Prabhupada said, forget scripture. He says, talk based on logic. He says that we can make our points based on logic. So in general, when we are talking with people, especially people who do not necessarily accept our sources of authority, we need to be able to make our points based on logic. And there are a lot of reasons available at a pure level of logic for vegetarian food. On my website, The Spiritual Scientist, there's an article where I give 4 reasons. I call it as help the world with the food that you eat. So there are 4 reasons at the level of health. HELP is an acronym. Health is much better from that if you eat vegetarian food. Then E is ecology. Lots of surveys that ecological conditions are much better if people eat vegetarian food, because so much the meat packing industry causes so much pollution. Then of course there's livestock. Livestock is, all the animals are subjected to so much brutality, systematic brutality. And P is poverty. That the same amount of land which can be used to feed one vegetarian person can feed actually one non-vegetarian person can feed 7 vegetarian people. Because when you grow crops, then you can feed humans directly. But if we grow fodder for animals, most of that fodder is excreted by them, and only a small amount of flesh is created from it. So overall, there are objective reasons that we can use. So in general, when we are communicating with others, it shouldn't be, our focus should not be that I have to communicate my principles. Yes, I have to communicate my principles in a way that will make sense to the other person. So in a way that makes sense. Otherwise, the only sense that makes sense is you are very judgmental and your God is very judgmental. And then that alienates people. Srila Prabhupada says that, what does realization mean? He says realization means to present the message of scripture in a way that is interesting for the audience. We can't present some other message. We present the message of scripture, but in a way that addresses the interests, needs, concerns, that makes sense to the audience. So it is for us to find among the explanations that we have for our scriptural truths, which explanation makes sense for people, and present that explanation. So that spirit of communicating our values is good, that what your daughter has. Sometimes we might just be scared. If I say that I don't even tweet, people will make fun of me or whatever. We don't want to do that. We should have the courage of our conviction. But then the courage also has to be accompanied by consideration. That how I am communicating is it going to attract that person to know more about what I am doing? See, the best way to communicate is that what we communicate makes sense at a level of logic. And then we say, this sensible, logical thing is coming from this book. And this book has so much more wisdom. So we don't use the book to establish our point. We establish that point and then say that wisdom is coming from the book. That helps them to at least see the book with a little more respect. Okay? Thank you. Okay. So, thank you very much for your thoughtful participation. And we'll continue tomorrow in our discussion about how we can make sure that we are going on that upward trajectory and being a part of Krishna's plan. So there are a couple of books that I have. This is Prayers Inspired by Bhagavad Gita. I already showed it to you. Now there is a very, there are 122 prayers with various deities. Many devotees told me that it's very helpful to them in their chanting. They read one prayer and then they chant. It calms their mind. And beyond that, there is a very accessible table of contents. There are 122 prayers. So each prayer is like a spiritual affirmation. And there are prayers when we feel lonely and abandoned, or there are prayers when we feel our cravings rising too much. There are prayers when we feel spiritually dry or disconnected. There are prayers when we feel directionless or purposeless in life, lost. So whatever be the specific situation we are going on, there are prayers for that. So this book is available, Prayers Inspired by Bhagavad Gita. And the second book, Gita for the CEO. Nowadays there's a lot of interest in the corporate circles for some wisdom from ancient texts. Stoicism is becoming very popular in mainstream America. Ikigai from Japan is also becoming popular. So HarperCollins is one of the biggest publishers in the world. So they asked me to present the Bhagavad Gita from this perspective. Like I was drawing some simple diagrams. So there are many diagrams and illustrations in this book, which I call as conceptographics. And I presented the Gita as a conversation between two people in the corporate world, one who knows the Gita and one who wants to know the Gita. And when we communicate, when people don't listen to us, why don't people listen to us? How can we make our communication more effective? How can we manage our mind so that our emotions don't become too turbulent? How can we have a more affirmative vision of our work? How can we draw out the leader within us? This is not just for CEOs. Ultimately, every one of us has to be the CEO of our own life. So this is a book which anybody wants to apply the Gita. There are some principles. And it's also a book that you may want to give to your gifts, to your friends, colleagues, relatives, who may not be able to connect with the Gita right now. Maybe a book like this will help them to appreciate and connect with the Gita better. So both these books are available, and I'll be here for some time also, today and tomorrow, to sign the books or to answer the further questions. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. It's always wonderful to have you here. Especially when you use like a lecture style, when you actually draw the pictures, lines, the things become clear. Thank you for bringing that kind of wisdom to us. And those, you all know Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, but a couple of highlights about who he is. He is actually a mentor monk and a speaker. You see him in various YouTube, the spiritual scientist, the channels and TEDx talks and corporate assignments. So he is actually giving this message to various audiences the way they need to understand. So he's a spiritual teacher for nearly 30 years in Bhakti Yoga tradition through his modern day expression, that is through ISKCON. He's author of 30 books that explain the relevance of Vedic wisdom texts, including the Bhagavad Gita and the Ramayana. He's the author of the world's only daily blog on the Bhagavad Gita, which is gitadaily.com. Those who do not know, they can go to this, where he has written some 5,000 articles on the Gita. He's invited to TEDx, World Peace Conference, UNESCO, Intel, Google, Microsoft, Salesforce, Stanford, Princeton, Yale, Harvard, MIT, and Cambridge. He gives 400 talks across 100 cities in 4 continents every year. So let's give a big Hari Bol to Prabhu. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. And this book is really wonderful. I was actually glancing through these prayers and all the pictures of various temples. I'm sure the next book will be all the pictures of the worldwide Radha Krishna. So, and I was actually thinking of the Gita for CEOs, right? Yeah, I was thinking I'm not going to be the CEO, so I probably am going to skip the book, but Prabhu mentioned the last, it's for us also. Thank you. Hare Krishna. And by the way, tomorrow, same time, 7:30. And on Thursday, Prabhu is going to go to the Bhakti Studio, which is the Mantra House in Seattle. Those who know, we opened a new center recently, formally. So please, when you have a chance, you should go and visit and tell all your friends in Seattle who stay in the close to Seattle area to visit Bhakti Studio. Hare Krishna.